to be having this conversation today. Been here before speaking with this group, talking about positive efforts that we've tried to work on collaboratively with the community, whether it be skilled trade, enhancement training for young people, system involved young people. I can tell you on my list, this was a meeting that I hoped that I would never be a part of. But ultimately, you're my boss. I want to be responsive to your questions. We want to explain to you what we know so far that we can share, and express to you our desire to put forth a fair, accurate, and complete final investigative product to present both to the county attorney and the grand jury. First of all, let's be clear. What happened on Thursday, May 22nd, was tragic. A young man in our community, Janidi Ibrahim, lost his life. We can't undo that. The family of Janidi Ibrahim lost a son, lost a father, lost a sibling, lost a nephew, lost a cousin. And that's tragic. The larger community, both the North Omaha community and the county as a whole, and the expanded community, has to live with the outcome of what happened. So do the law enforcement officers directly involved and the law enforcement community as a whole.
All right, peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. And there you see the Douglas County Sheriff. I think that is Omaha or North Omaha, Nebraska, trying to babble and explain why Janidi Ibrahim was killed by an undercover tactical officer who rode up on him at 2:30 in the morning, not identifying himself as an officer. Now, if you have not seen the previous video where, I detailed the particulars of the case, you can go back and watch this. But this right here is members of the community checking the sheriff on their inability to be transparent by not showing the entire video, but only showing still photos so they can paint the narrative just as they've done in Ryan Hinton's case. So you're going to hear the people call him out. And I don't know if these people think that we are stupid or what, but a blind man can see what they do when they only show us still pictures and begin to tell us what the still pictures show. But without further ado, I'm going to let him continue on babbling, and you're going to see members of the community call him out on his nothingness that he's talking about.
There are no winners here, and I know them. On Thursday, May 22nd, at a little after 2:30 in the morning, a sergeant with the Douglas County Sheriff's Office Special Operations Group was in the area of 48th and Pratt, furthering a active firearms investigation. He wasn't working alone that day. He's a supervisor. He had two subordinate deputies working with him that were not far away, but not immediately in the area. That sergeant, as he drove down 48th and Pratt Street, came in contact with a maroon Chevy Trailblazer with multiple occupants in and around the vehicle. The investigation so far is indicating that something spontaneous happened at that time, which
he said that something spontaneous happened at that time. What does that mean? He's going to use that phrase a lot during this nothingness babble. But what does that mean? Something spontaneous happened. What is he talking about? They also spontaneously shot the young man. About that.
Changed that sergeant's original plan, which is simply a surveillance plan, to instead a scenario in which he changed his plan and had to try to make contact. Unfortunately, that contact resulted in the death of Janidi Ibrahim. What we do know is that that sergeant did have an operational body camera. That body camera was activated and functional. We have reviewed that body camera footage both initially and painstakingly in slow motion. What I can also tell you is that this is a case in which there were other weapons involved other than the deputies. There were 2 firearms in the vehicle, one of which was stolen. The stolen firearm was determined to be in the possession of Janidi Ibrahim. And the body camera video, as shared in still shots, on at least one occasion, according to the video itself, was pointed at and in the direction of Sergeant Long. At some point, the distance closes between Sergeant Ronk and Janidi Ibrahim, and contact is made at the vehicle. We're learning that Mr. Ibrahim started the encounter outside the vehicle. After the spontaneous event, after Sergeant Ronk exited the vehicle, Mr. Ibrahim entered the vehicle. Mr. Ibrahim was in possession of the firearm with an active tactical flashlight before he entered the vehicle and after he entered the vehicle. The fact that Mr. Ibrahim was in possession of the firearm in the street doesn't tell us the whole story. What happened in and at the vehicle is ultimately what we are trying to bring into greater focus. Because although it was one series of events, and the initial contact was a certain fact pattern, there's also a particular fact pattern at the end of the event.
Did you hear what he said? Absolutely nothing. There was a spontaneous contact, and at some point the distance closed and contact was made, and the fact that there was a simultaneous event at the vehicle and one with outside the vehicle is what we're trying to bring into a greater focus. Like, he's saying absolutely nothing. He's just giving us a bunch of meaningless word salad.
But what I can tell you is that after that fatal encounter in which the deputy discharged his service weapon, immediately that sergeant and the 2 responding deputies did their very best to render aid. They were equipped with what they hoped would be life-saving first aid kits. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Mr. Ibrahim succumbed to his gunshot wound injuries. That morning, I was on scene. I made a point of going back to speak to the family. After that contact, I had to run through the short list of other people that I needed to call, one of which was Mr. Barney. Tried to contact on that very morning. We did connect later. I found out he was out of town. I look forward to the conversation we're going to have today. I don't relish it. I wish we weren't having it, but we must. I assure you that this investigation will be fair, complete.
It's already not fair.
And once
we
have that final investigation.
Go back to the part where why didn't he call a marked car instead of approaching that vehicle on his own? Why not call a black and white to show up so that way we knew it was the police? Who knew who this guy was at 2:30 in the morning?
Let me answer that question. It's good question. So I can tell you that the Special Operations Group, their primary effort is to do surveillance. And that particular sergeant, who was also a team leader on the SWAT team, their typical business model is that there will be a transition from surveillance to careful contact if they deem appropriate. I believe that was their plan. I believe that was their plan that day.
It's careful contact.
You said backup was a couple blocks away.
Why not call the backup?
So you engaged.
Because I
Why
can tell
create
you,
the escalation? Y'all are trained to de-escalate except for when it comes to black people.
Yeah.
Why jump out your car with your gun and shoot him 3 times? That's not de-escalation. You can hear what I'm saying?
I do.
You're full of your own. And I talked to you on the phone.
You're
And you need to let the family see the video.
It's
It's that simple.
creeping up on a car, not asking who he was. That boy
Show
was
the
scared.
Please, Sherman, the scene.
Show the video. We need the family to at least be able to see that video. Because there was no de-escalation practice. You're a trained officer. Y'all are trained to de-escalate. That was not de-escalation, that was escalation. Okay? 2:30 in the morning, a black car with tinted windows riding up and down the street hunting black people in North Omaha. That's what that was. There was no need for escalation. Call the black and white, so then at least we know when he pull up, that's the police, and that situation wouldn't have went the way it went. So let's get back to that part while you're moving forward in your presentation.
I can assure you, Mr. Lewis, that de-escalation, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't, you had the
This is
mask on,
Sherman
I couldn't
Williams.
tell, Sherman, I couldn't tell you,
We all
Mr.
look
Wells.
alike, sir.
I apologize.
We all look alike.
I apologize. Mr. Wells, that is obviously the original plan in almost any of these situations.
What changed?
We do want de-escalation. We want thoughtful tactics. What I can tell you, and what
All right, peace and blessings, all praises to the Most High. There you see at the end the brothers calling this sheriff out on his BS. You know, all of that, what he's saying does not make a lick of sense. As you hear the audience giving a true version of the event that the officer rolled up on the young men in the Jeep 2:30 in the morning, talking about a firearm investigation or whatever the case may be. And they're basically in black neighborhoods looking for black people who may be outside too late. And that is what he's found. He's talking about, well, he had backup a couple of cars away. And the people ask, why didn't you call the backup then? Why didn't you call the backup to identify yourselves? And other people in the audience was, echoing that sentiment that the young man didn't know who you were at 2:30 in the morning. That's why in the first video, I knew it was something when they kept saying, well, he was identifiable as an officer. The people should have known he was an officer. Evidently, these people are saying, no, nobody knew this was the police. It's 2:30 in the morning. Somebody runs up on you with a gun drawn. You don't know who he is. And then they are stowing the still photos of the video of our young brother allegedly pointing a gun at them when, he didn't know who he was. And I'm not even going to say that still shot does say that. But, the whole narrative of the sheriff talking about, well, there was a change of plans and, it caused him to make contact. There was a spontaneous event, and at some point the distance closed, and he initiated the contact outside of the vehicle. And what happened inside the vehicle is what we want to bring to a greater focus. And he does be very deliberate in talking about this, whether there was a stolen gun, and he was in possession of the stolen gun, and the officers, after shooting him, attempted to give life-saving measures. Now, all of those make the officers look good and him look bad. But all of that vagueness in the middle, talking about, he changed the plan and it was something spontaneous happened. And after that spontaneous event, he felt the need to change. Like, come on, man. Like the brother in the audience said, yo, that's BS. Let's get back to a point where this officer rode up on him in a rogue manner, failing to identify himself. Why didn't he call Why didn't he call for backup to identify himself as a law enforcement? Now, this is not the only part of that meeting. I'm going to play some parts of that meeting, later on, but I just felt like that part right there just shows how these evil people, these evil white sheriffs, when it comes to the loss of black life, they are very indifferent. They are very matter of fact with it. They are very vague and ambiguous with what really happened. But as soon as an officer gets shot down, oh, wow, there's outrage, there's support, there's, nothing like this should ever happen. How dare they, and so on and so forth. So, as the scriptures say, there's a time for everything under the sun, a time for sowing and a time for reaping. So once again, if you guys are continuing to sow this violence in the black communities and other communities, then, you probably can look forward to reaping those same things upon your own self or your own family self. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this video in the comments. Y'all see the number 919-587-7782. Thanks for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing. Thanks for all the calls, texts, emails, even the donations on the Cash App. And as well, if you want to order my books, you see the website, TaylorHousePublications.com. Once again, peace and blessings.